Hello. We are here with a whole bunch of people. This is the Calvary West team. They have been a part of DavieLiFE for several years now, and I know serve lots and lots of folks here in the community. Thank you guys for joining us this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Good. Ryan, wave your hand. Ryan. Okay. Go ahead and tell us who you are and then introduce us to everybody else who is participating in the online interview.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my name's Ryan, and I have been at Calvary West since we opened, which was Mother's Day 2009. Okay. I am married. We're going on 13 years. It'll be 13 this summer. Our anniversary will be 13 years. And Meredith and I have 4 kids. We have an 8-year-old who you can see behind me. I am sharing an office with a 2nd grader for social distancing. And yeah, you just got to make it work. So
right.
We've got an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and twin 3-year-olds.
Wow.
So yes.
You got a lot going on.
Yeah, so we spend a lot of time outside, and luckily we live on a part of Meredith's family's farm, so we can kind of send them outside and let them play. And yeah. That's been good, yeah. Okay. So the rest of our team, you see Jennifer Dahmer. Jennifer, I think, is at West Campus right now. Okay. Doing work from her office. Jennifer is our director of Next Gen Ministry, so she handles everything from birth through high school and oversees those ministry areas, gives kind of vision and direction to those. Okay. And then you see Cam and Zoe Ulmer, who are married to each other, which is why they're hanging out in the same apartment. Yeah. So Cam is our worship pastor at Calvary West, and he also leads our students on Sunday nights for their large group weekly gathering. And Zoe is our campus coordinator. So she handles all the first impressions and campus events, and also coordinates details for us at Calvary West. So we've been working together as a team for just over 2 years now. Well, going on 2.5 years, I guess. Okay. As this team right here. So.
Okay. Well, again, thank you all for coordinating your schedules so we could all get on here together. Like I said, this was the first time we had more than just 2 people, so I was kind of like, yeah, I hope Facebook lets us do this, but obviously it does. So next time we'll go for, I don't know, 7 or 8. So.
Everybody, yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and get started with the questions. I wanted you guys to tell us just a little bit about Calvary West in general.
Yeah, well, as I said, Calvary West launched on Mother's Day 2009, so we're coming up on our 11th anniversary, 11 years of ministry in Davie County, and man, just incredibly grateful for that milestone coming up in just a couple of Sundays. But Calvary West, we are all about speaking peace into brokenness. So we see the peace that God has and that God provides. We see, on the other hand, the brokenness of the world around us, which many of us are experiencing up close and personal right now. And we want to be a place that translates that peace to that brokenness. And so we do that kind of in three primary ways, which are worship, weekly worship gathering for the church. We sing together, we pray together, we hear teaching together. We also have small groups that meet both on campus and off. Some meet in homes, some meet on Sundays. And then we also encourage all of our folks to be serving. So for some folks, that's, at church, it's leading a class of preschoolers or ministering to students or teaching adults. And for a lot of our folks, that's off campus in the community as well. So community partners like William R. Davie and Storehouse for Jesus, Davie Pregnancy Care Center. We try to get folks serving. Jesus came that he didn't come to be served, but to serve. And so we want to be having all of our folks and us as well with that same mindset of, man, where do we see the needs and how can we serve folks in those situations? So those are the 3 primary things that we do week in and week out: worship, groups, and serving. And, Wendy, we often talk about Calvary West as a place of belonging and hope. And belonging because we recognize that we're a family of people who are following God together, not related by by blood or family tree or anything like that, but by who we are in Jesus. And then a place of hope because we recognize that God alone has the hope and the help that we all need. And so as we follow him together as a family, we get access to that hope that oftentimes when we're isolated, when we're alone, when we're trying to figure things out on our own, we miss that. We get so overwhelmed by circumstances and struggles and the brokenness that we miss the help and the hope that God has. So together we can kind of reorient each other back to that over and over again. So we like to say, man, Calvary West should be a place of belonging and of hope. Okay. So that's just a little bit about us.
Okay. You all may already have this plan to highlight, but when do you all have services? I mean, obviously on Sunday, but do you have multiple services? What are people's options to participate when we're not social distancing?
Yes, great question. When we're not social distancing, we meet together at 9:00 for our groups, and that is for birth all the way through adults. So we've got, from babies all the way up at 9:00, and then at 10:30 we meet for worship. So just one service at Calvary West, and it's 10:30 on Sundays.
Okay, and now everything is online, right?
Everything is online. Yeah, groups and everything are meeting online. Most of our groups are meeting through Zoom or Google Meet, and our service is streamed at 10:30. But I think Zoe and Cam, we're going to talk a little bit about just how things are different and what those things are, if that's all right.
I'm jumping out of order, so.
No, it's totally fine.
Okay, well then let's move to the next question then, which it sounds like the next two up are ready for that. Go ahead and tell us how Calvary West is doing things differently during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously kind of have to adjust to what's going on in the world around us, but we feel super fortunate, super blessed to be able to have a platform to stream all of our services. Of course, we do that normally, even without, this sort of social distancing time, but it's especially important right now. So continuing to stream on calvarywest.churchonline.org. All our services, Sunday morning at 10:30. And then, of course, as mentioned, our home groups are continuing to meet. Our Bible fellowship groups, we're continuing to meet via Zoom and digitally, it's an interesting time. It's actually been really cool to have everybody open up their homes and just do life together in ways that I don't think really any of us could have ever expected.
Yeah, well, and it's funny how I think so many churches and like you guys, I mean, I can remember a time when people were like, why does a church need technology? Why? And I'm like, gosh, aren't we all so grateful now that churches, embraced that and set that up so that they could reach people during times like this, because no one saw this coming.
Absolutely. Yeah. None of us saw this coming. And even we've had to kind of adjust to putting an emphasis on our streams and on reaching out to people in their homes. It's actually been really cool. We've been able to do some really cool stuff with our social media accounts too. My wife could tell you more about that.
Okay.
Yeah. We actually had a crazy idea. I wanted to give an example as we talk about our social media, but a couple of weeks ago, we planned a campus cookout, and it unfortunately had to be canceled because of social distancing and gas. And so Ryan had the really cool idea to just do it anyways, but in a social distance, safe way. So we invited our families to just cook out with us Sunday after the service, but in their own kitchens. And it was just a day of grilling. And then we told them to take a photo of what they cooked, who they cooked with, and then share it with our hashtag Calvary West fam. And the just response of it was unbelievable to see the smiling faces of every family that gathered together, took those photos, cooked, grilled. We don't have a grill, so we George Foreman'd, but it was all the same. And it was just really such a sweet thing. So it's been a cool opportunity to be able to implement our social media in that way, to just cultivate that community that has been growing at Calvary West.
Yeah. Could you tell, based on the engagement, could you tell how many people attended the cookout?
Yes, it was really cool. We actually did a raffle from it. And so people were encouraged even more to post those photos. But we had a huge amount of people post in. They did some seafood boils. We had cast iron. I mean, it was really neat.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's a good idea. So who knows? You may be just sharing that idea with others that they're going to start duplicating it. So, yeah. Okay. On to the next question. What is something that Calvary offers that people may not realize?
I'm going to take this question.
Okay.
And I'm going to answer it in two ways. So when we're not social distancing and we're meeting on campus, one thing that we do that people may not realize is we offer a worship experience for all ages at the same time. So Ryan talked about our worship service at 10:30, and that's mostly geared towards adults. But during that time, we also offer a preschool worship experience, which is our 3-year-olds through 5-year-olds. And so they're worshiping and getting teaching that's on their level at the same time as their parents and grandparents that are worshiping and getting teaching on their level. So I just think that's a really neat thing to think about, that when you walk into our campus at 10:30, we've got our smallest, youngest worshipers to our oldest worshipers that are all worshiping at their level and getting teaching at their level at that very moment. So I think that's one thing that we do when we're not social distancing that people may not realize that we're doing at 10:30 on a normal Sunday.
Okay.
So the other part of that question, since we are social distancing, I'm sending out some videos for people to be able to do that at home with their kids right now. But we also have just launched a couple of initiatives and things that we're doing to meet the needs that we're seeing. And they are a compassion fund and a helping hands ministry. And so we just recognize that there are so many needs right now amongst people that can be financial or they can be physical. And so we also have so many people that are saying, hey, I can help right now. What can I do to help? And so we've got a huge group of people who have said, that's me. I can help. What can I do to help? I'm ready. Sign me up. And so they're just waiting to help however they can. So we've got the Compassion Fund and the Helping Hands Ministry. And you can go to calvarynow.com/COVID-serve. And you can click to say, hey, I'm one of the people that needs help. And we've got people that are ready to help in whatever ways we can. So we are just encouraging people that it's not easy to ask for help, and we know that people are having to ask for help in ways that they've never had to ask for help before. But we've got people that are seeing the need and that are saying, hey, I'm ready, I can help, I'm ready to do that. So we're encouraging people to just take that step of faith and say, all right, I need help, because we're ready to help. So that's one thing that we're doing that people may not realize we're doing, and we want to encourage people to utilize that.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that, because I think you're right. I think, 6 weeks ago, people who may need help, they never saw themselves being in this boat. And it's and they may have never been put in this situation before, and there is a feeling of embarrassment. But I think people need to be reminded that they didn't cause this, so it's not their fault. And the fact that you all are offering that is great. And I think it's also great that you're letting folks know that there's a way that because I think so many people do want to help, but they don't really know what to do because you're stuck at home, and it's so different than it's ever been before. So I hope that folks will visit that.
Yeah, we've had a lot of people, Wendy, who are saying like, hey, I want to do something. What do I do? And so we tried to put those two things side by side, because until somebody shares that they have a need, there's this sort of, this rush of people that are ready to help. And, I think it's huge for folks to feel comfortable to say, hey, I lost my job. I've been furloughed. I've been laid off.
Absolutely.
Things are tighter for me. My business is struggling. I don't know when we're going to get a revenue stream back. And for people not to feel a sense of shame or embarrassment, because to your point, none of us, this isn't anybody's fault. And it's not, nobody should feel like, man, there's any kind of, strings attached, or people are going to think a certain way. Because again, it's the brokenness of the world. We're all experiencing it. And so we want to be stepping in and helping folks connect with somebody who can help them when they need it.
Well, thank you all. Thank you all for doing that. I think it's very, very needed, and I hope it will be utilized. Okay. Last question. And I think, Ryan, you said you were going to address this. you know, you're obviously, you're a church, so people look to a church for words of encouragement. And, you know, the world is very different right now. So I'm sure that you've been asked lots of questions, you know, why is this happening? You know, runs the gamut. But what are some words of encouragement that you would like to share with folks who may be listening?
Yeah, I would love to talk from Psalm 77. It's, you know, sometimes there's a sense of spiritual pretending when things are going well. We all, you know, hey, my family's covered financially, and my kids are doing well relationally, and you know, my business is growing, my marriage, my friendships are all great, and so we sort of, because we're so connected to all of those things, we're disconnected from our spiritual life. And as those things start to get stripped away, the need for a connection with God rises in our hearts. But then sometimes we feel like, well, I haven't been paying attention spiritually, so who am I to start, you know, is God going to listen to me, or is he going to hear from me?
Right.
And Psalm 77, I love it because the author, he sort of gets down to the absolute rawest emotion. And he asks a few questions in here about his circumstances that I think are helpful for all of us to understand. Yeah, you can approach God now, and you can approach God with anything. And so in Psalm 77, he talks about crying out to God for help. He says, I cried out for God to help. I cried out for God to hear me. When I was in distress, I sought the Lord, and my soul refused to be comforted. I remembered you, O God, and I groaned. I mused, and my spirit grew faint. And this guy is like in the midst of something terrible. You don't know exactly what the circumstance is, but he's talking about crying out to God, feeling like God isn't answering. You know, he's over and over to the point of exhaustion, crying out to God. And I have heard from a lot of folks who are going, Brian, where's God in the midst of this? Like, where is God? Why is God letting this happen? My business shut down. I was laid off. My spouse can't find work. You know, and that is that just sense of like, God, what in the world is happening right now? And he doesn't stay there, though, which is the interesting part. He feels the emotion of it. He recognizes it. And then he asks the questions that his heart is really wondering about. He says, will the Lord reject forever? Will he never show his favor again? Has his unfailing love vanished forever? Has his promise failed for all time? Has God forgotten to be merciful? And has he in anger withheld his compassion? And I love that, because a lot of times people will ask me, like, is it okay to have doubts? Is it okay to have questions about God or about the Bible or about my spiritual life? And there's sometimes a sense of like, no, that's not okay. You know, and people have been made to feel like it's not. And what I love about Psalm 77 is that you can't read Psalm 77 and still come to the conclusion that it's not okay to ask the questions that you're really wondering about, because he lays it out there like, well, has God's promise failed for all time? That's the one that always catches me off guard, almost like, dang, I can't believe he asked that. Yeah. And he does, you know, and he does it with a sense of, you know, desperation. Like, God, you said you were loving, you said you take care of us, and yet what I'm experiencing in my life absolutely is not matching up with what I feel like you said to me. So what gives? Yeah. And the way that he answers those questions, he helps us have a pattern, I think, of how to do that. He reminds himself, he says, to this I will appeal, the years of the right hand of the Most High, which is a phrase that sort of is pointing to the past. And so he says, I'm going to remember right now, in the middle of all the mess and the chaos and the confusion and the heartbreak, I'm going to remember what happened in the past. And he goes back and he reminds himself of the story of the Exodus. And he basically says, you led your people like a flock. And, you know, you see the imagery of the shepherd in Psalm 23, and with Jesus being the great shepherd of the sheep. And so he says, yeah, I remember that you led your people before. I can't tell what you're doing right now. It doesn't seem like much of anything, but I believe that if you did it before, you can do it again. And that's where the psalm ends. Like, his circumstances, you don't know how they change. It's not a promise that things will be better if you pray harder or try harder spiritually. it's a promise that God will be with you and that he will be your shepherd no matter what.
Right.
And so my encouragement to folks would be, man, if you've been disconnected spiritually and you've been missing or ignoring that part of life, now is the time to reconnect, because, you know, while we might go away, God never changes. And so he's present. His offer to be with you, to love you, to care for you, to give you mercy and grace. It's an offer that is for the chaos of right now. It's for the heartbreak of right now. It is for this moment as much as any other moment.
Yeah.
And so if folks need a place to start, you know, Psalm 77 is a great place to start. And read that, be reminded of God's faithfulness, his love for you, and let that be the first step towards a journey of reconnecting with God and who he created you to be.
Well, thank you so much for that. I think that's a great reminder. You know, we all need to be reminded that, because it's so true. So, well, I really do appreciate y'all taking the time to meet with us. It's been nice, feeling like I know who you guys are. Maybe one day we'll meet in person. I think I have met Ryan in person.
Yes,
so,
yeah.
But, well, if anything else you guys want to add before we hop off?
We just want to say, you know, everyone is welcome at Calvary West. So if you're, you know, if you've got a church that you're connected to, man, stay connected there, and may God bless you. If you're looking for a place to call home spiritually, you're welcome to join us at Calvary West Sunday mornings at 10:30. And we'd love to say hi if we haven't met you yet.
Okay. Well, that sounds great. Well, I again want to say thank you, and I hope you guys have a great rest of the afternoon. And hopefully we'll all be able to get together in person sooner versus later.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Wendy.
Okay.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you. See you. Bye.
Bye.